So problem number 14 says, which equation below represents the line that passes through the point -2, 5 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 1/2 x plus 5. Well, perpendicular is a key word here, so we're going to take the slope and we're going to flip it over, and then we have to so that should be a whoops. Just scribbled this out. So we're going to flip it over, and we flip it over, we get 2 over 1, and then we have to make it the opposites. It's going to be -2 over 1, which is really just equal to a -2. So that's my new slope. So m equals -2. If I go to write my equation, y equals -2m plus b, which is my y-intercept. The problem doesn't tell me what my y-intercept, so I'm going to plug in my points up here. I'm going to plug in my x and my y into my equation down here. So I'm going to get 5 equals -2. Sorry, this should have been an x right here. -2 times -2 plus b. So 5 equals a -2 times -2 is a +4 plus a b. You minus your 4 from both sides. Get 1 equals b. So now you take that and your slope, and we're going to write our equation right here. We're going to get y equals -2x plus 1. And when we look at the answer choices, that is letter G. So number 15 is shown on the screen. Which representation does not, so let's circle that keyword, not show y as a function of x. So to be a function, I'm going to write this over here, to be a function, x cannot repeat. So since we're looking for something that is not a function, what we're looking for is x repeats. Okay, so let's go through these. We start with letter F. -2 doesn't repeat, -1 doesn't repeat, 0 doesn't repeat, 1, 2, none of those repeat. They all go to one place, so it's not letter F. Look at letter H. Down the X column right here, none of my X's repeat, so that's not the answer. If you look at G, the ordered pairs, I have -1, 0, 2, and 7. None of those repeat, which means we hope it's letter J, and we can prove it's letter J because when I draw these vertical lines, I touch more than one point, which means it fails the vertical line test, which means it's not a function, so it's letter J. So number 16 is on the screen. It says the population of Webb County, Texas, from the year 2000 to 2010 is shown in the graph. And so on the bottom it says the number of years since 2000, and the population over here is in thousands. So if the trend on the graph continues, what will the population of Webb, Texas be in 2015? This is a key number right here. So the first thing we need to do is look at what we have. And what we have is 2 dots that form a line. So when you form a line, it means you have a slope. So let's go ahead and find our slope. So I'm going to do my y2, 250, minus my y1 over my x2 minus my x1. And when you do 250 minus 193, you're going to get 57 over 10. When you do 57 over 10, you're going to get 5.7. Remember, this 5.7 is thousands. So it's 5,700. So every year the population is going to go up by 5,700. So right now, if I look at my graph, this dot right here tells me the population. This dot right here is telling me the population in 2010. I want the population in 2015, which means I need to add my 5,700 to my 250,000, which is from this dot right here. The y part, I need to add it 5 times. So if you use a calculator and you type in 250,000 plus 5,700 one time, you're going to get 255,700. And that's for 2011. So we're going to keep going until we get 2015. So again, you're going to add your 5,700. It's going to get you the population for 2012. And then I'm going to add it again. It's going to get you the population for 2013. And I'm going to add it again. And get the population for 2014. And if I add it one more time, and get me the population for 2015, which is 278,500. So letter G is my answer. Okay, so number 17 wants to know what the solutions are. And the key here is this is a quadratic, and we need the quadratic to equal 0 before we solve anything. So we're going to do 3x squared plus 15x, and I'm going to subtract over my 18 so that I can make this equal 0. Now that it equals 0, I can solve and I can factor. But before you do that, always look if there's a GCF. Is there a number that 3 and 15 and 18 all have in common? Well, they do. They all have a 3 in common. So I'm going to divide everything, both sides, by 3 so that it makes my life easier to factor. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, so you're going to get x squared. 15 divided by 3 is 5, so plus 5x. Negative 18 divided by a 3 is going to get me a minus 6, and it's going to equal 0. And now we can factor using our box. Actually, let me see if I can draw my box a little bit better than that. Not a lot better, that's okay. So we're going to take our 6, and we're going to list the factors of 6. So 1 and 6, 2 and 5. And so we're going to go right here and look at the sign in front of the 5. It's positive, which means the bigger factor has to be a positive, and this should not have been a 5, sorry. This should have been a 3. Okay, so let me say that again. So right here, the plus sign in front of the 5 tells us that when we go down here, the bigger factor has to be a positive, so positive and positive. And the negative in front of the 6 tells us that the smaller factor has to have the opposite sign, so negative, negative. And now you have to pick the pair that add up to 5. Well, negative 2 and 3 don't add up to 5, but negative 1 and positive 6 do. So I'm going to put my first term in my first box and my last term in my last box, and then I'm going to use the factors and put 6x and negative 1x, and then I'm going to factor. 6x and negative 6 have a 6 in common. X squared and negative x have a x in common. X squared and 6x have an x in common, and negative 1x and negative 1x and negative 6 have a negative 1 in common. So this factors into x plus 6, and x minus 1 equals 0. And you solve, x plus 6 equals 0, and x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals negative 6 and x equals 1 are your two zeros. So you want to pick letter B. Now let's pretend on your test that you can't remember how to factor, and that's okay. So let me make a new page real quick. So the key right now is that you know that you have 3x squared plus 15x equals 18. The only key to this is that it has to equal 0. So if you move that 18 over again, you're going to have 3x squared minus 15x minus 18 equals 0. And then all you have to do is pick up your calculator and you can graph it. And when you do that, you're going to get a picture. Okay, so when you're looking at this graph, you can see right here it crosses the x-axis at negative 6 and at 1, which means x equals negative 6 and x equals 1 are your answers. And all we need to do is make sure that we move this 18 over so it equals 0, and then we can graph it in our calculator and look for the zeros. And the zeros are the place where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so just like the last problem, we're going to use this graph, and it says that the solutions of the quadratic are negative 2 and 8, which are right here. What is the standard form of the related equation? So let's write what we know. We know that we have y equals x minus a negative 2 and x minus 8, Because if we're given solutions like x equals -2, then we write x minus that thing, -2, and then we plug it into the equation. So let's write this one more time. Now we have y equals x plus 2, because a negative makes a plus, and x minus 8. And now we're going to FOIL, and I'm going to FOIL by using my box. So kind of the opposite of what we did in the last problem. So up here on the top, I'm going to put my x and my plus 2. And on the side, I'm going to put my x and my minus 8. And in the boxes, we do x times x to make x squared. X times 2 makes 2x. X times -8 makes a negative 8x. Negative 8 times 2 is going to make a negative 16. Maybe, there we go, negative 16. And then we have to add the ones on the diagonal right here because they're both x's. So what we have is we have a x squared. And if you want to write it out, we have plus 2x minus 8x minus 16. And again, we have to combine these two because they're both plain old x's. And when you combine them, you're going to get positive 2 minus 8 is going to be a negative 6. So we're going to have x squared minus 6x minus 16. Then we have to go over the answer choices and match it up. And it matches up to letter F. So the answer on this one is letter F. Number 19 says, what is the 0 of, and that gives you the equation, r of x equals 8 over 3x minus 16. Well, you have to know that a 0 of an equation is a solution when the equation equals 0. That's why it's called a 0. So 0 equals 8 over 3x minus 16. So you need to add 16 to both sides. So now you'll get 16 equals 8 over 3x. You need to multiply both sides by 3. So when you do 16 times 3, you get 48. And now you have equals. These 3's cancel off, so you have your 8x. Then you're going to divide by 8 because the 8 and the x are multiplying. And 48 divided by 8 is 6. So x equals 6, which means your answer is letter C.